Right now, Arsenal Football Club are living through the most extraordinary week in their modern history. The Premier League trophy has just been lifted. The champagne has barely dried. And yet this club is not resting for even one single second. Because 5 days from now in Budapest, Arsenal face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League Final, a final that could complete the most remarkable double this club has ever achieved in the 21st century. Let that sink in for a moment. Premier League champions, and now 90 minutes away from becoming champions of Europe for the very first time in the club's history. But before we get to Budapest, before we talk about what that final means, there is so much happening right now around this club that every Arsenal supporter needs to understand. Today, I am going to walk you through everything: the preparations, the injury news from the PSG camp, the incredible records within touching distance, the emotional reactions from the players and manager, and the summer transfer window that is already moving in the background, even before this season is officially over. This is your complete breakdown of where Arsenal stand right now. And I can tell you, as someone who watches this club closely, the picture is extraordinary. Here is what is on the line. Arsenal have not won the Champions League. Ever. Not once in the club's entire history. That is the reality. And now they are one game away from changing that forever. The weight of that fact is enormous. But what makes this moment even more special is the context surrounding it. Arsenal have already ended a 22-year wait for the Premier League title this season. They are already champions of England. Now they have the chance to win the biggest club competition in world football in the same season. If you want this level of detailed independent analysis on everything happening at Arsenal right now, hit that subscribe button. This channel covers every angle, every story, and every implication for this club. You will not get this depth anywhere else. Now let us get into the details. The squad preparations. The first piece of confirmed news coming out of the Arsenal camp today is about their preparations for Budapest. The squad will return to the Sober Realty Training Centre for training before flying out to Budapest on Thursday ahead of the Champions League Final. That is the plan. Train, prepare, and then travel to the venue where history could be made. Now, what does this tell us as analysts? It tells us that Mikel Arteta is not rushing his players. After the Premier League trophy celebrations over the weekend, there is a clear and structured plan in place. The squad gets to regroup, to return to their training environment, to come back to what they know, and then they travel. That is disciplined management. That is the kind of professional approach that has defined this Arsenal team throughout this entire campaign. There is no chaos. There is no panic. There is a plan and they are following it. For a team that has just lifted the Premier League trophy, the temptation to get lost in the celebrations is understandable. But Arsenal have a final in 5 days. And the way this preparation is being handled tells you everything about the culture Arteta has built at this club. PSG injury crisis? Now here is where things get very interesting for Arsenal supporters. Because while Arsenal are preparing calmly and professionally, Paris Saint-Germain are dealing with a significant injury crisis heading into the final. The situation with PSG right now is deeply concerning for Luis Enrique. 2 of their most important players are major doubts for Budapest. Achraf Hakimi has not trained fully since suffering a thigh injury in their match against Bayern Munich. He is now described as a major doubt for the final. And then there is Ousmane Dembele, who missed PSG's latest in-house friendly after picking up a knock during their defeat to Paris FC. Both players are sweating over their fitness right now. Think about what this means. Hakimi is PSG's primary attacking threat from right back. His pace, his energy, his ability to create going forward, these are central to how PSG play. And Dembele, when fit, is one of the most dangerous wide forwards in world football. He causes problems for any defence on his day. The reality for Arsenal is that this injury news is genuinely significant. If both Hakimi and Dembele miss the final or even play at reduced capacity, PSG's attacking threat is substantially reduced. Arsenal's defensive record in the Champions League this season has already been extraordinary. No team, apart from a dead rubber match, has managed to score twice against Arsenal in this competition all season. That is an outrageous defensive record. And now the opposition could be walking into that final without 2 of their key attacking weapons at full fitness. This is not Arsenal's doing. But it is a factor that any serious analyst has to acknowledge. And it is a huge concern for Luis Enrique just days before the biggest game of his PSG tenure. The transfer rumours heating up. Now we move into transfer territory, and I want to be very clear about what is confirmed and what is still at the rumour stage. Because there are several names circulating around Arsenal right now, and it is important that supporters understand exactly where each situation stands. The first name is Jurrien Alvarez. The Argentine forward currently plays for Atletico Madrid, and the situation is that his chances of leaving Atletico this summer are growing. Now, the most important point here is that Barcelona are currently the club emerging as the most interested party, although the financial side of that deal is not expected to be simple. But what is also clear is that both PSG and Arsenal are pushing hard for this striker as well. However, and this is critical, Fabrizio Romano has been very specific on this. There are no active talks taking place between Julian Alvarez and any new club at this stage. Even Atletico Madrid's manager Diego Simeone has commented on the situation, saying, and I quote his words here, his future, he is old enough to know what he wants to do, and I imagine he has already made his decision. That is a remarkably telling comment from a manager. Simeone is essentially confirming that Alvarez has made up his mind about his future, even if nothing is officially announced yet. So what does this mean for Arsenal? It means they are in the race. They are pushing, but Barcelona are currently ahead, and the finances are complicated. This is a rumour. It is a credible rumour with serious sources attached to it. But it is not a done deal. It is not even close to a done deal. Supporters should monitor this situation but not treat it as confirmed. The second transfer name to address is Sandro Tonali. The Italian midfielder currently plays for Newcastle United, and the evidence suggests Arsenal have resumed talks with his representatives over a potential summer move. Tonali is described as being desperate to play Champions League football next season. Now, if Arsenal win in Budapest on May 30th, they will of course be in the Champions League next season regardless. And if they do not win, they have already qualified through their Premier League title. So Arsenal can offer Tonali what he wants. Again, this is at the talk stage. Nothing is confirmed. Nothing is agreed. But the fact that conversations have resumed is meaningful. Arteta clearly sees Tonali as someone who fits the profile of player this club is trying to build with. And the third defensive name to watch is Alvarez Lacroix, the Crystal Palace centre-back. The evidence is clear that Arsenal are closely monitoring him ahead of the summer window. Mikel Arteta is personally a fan of the French defender and is reportedly pushing for his signature. Again, this is at the monitoring stage. It is a rumour, but it is a rumour with the manager's personal interest attached to it, which gives it more weight than your average speculation. Noni Madueke sends a message. Moving back to on-pitch matters, there has been a very clear and public message from one of Arsenal's squad players this week. Noni Madueke has spoken about the Champions League Final, and his words reflect exactly the mentality you would want to see from a squad player in this moment. His message was direct. Focus is now fully on Budapest. He spoke about needing to bring that second trophy home, calling it something that will be amazing, and he ended with the words, God willing, we get that Champions League. Those are not the words of a distracted player. Those are not the words of someone who is still caught up in the Premier League celebrations. That is a player who understands the opportunity in front of him and is locked in on what needs to happen. For Arsenal supporters, this kind of squad mentality matters. It is not just the starting 11 who need to be focused. It is every single player in that group. And the signal coming from Madueke is exactly the right one. Arteta's words on the board and the journey. Mikel Arteta has given several interviews following the Premier League title victory, and his words deserve careful analysis because they tell you a great deal about the culture and the direction of this club. On the Arsenal board, Arteta was emotional and generous. He made a point of thanking the people who took the decision to hire him when he had no managerial experience at all. He specifically named Edu Gaspar, Tim Lewis and Vinay Venkatesham as people who were crucial to that original decision. He also acknowledged Josh Kroenke and Stan Kroenke, saying they are still here and that many people along the way have been crucial to building this connection and this competitive team. This matters because it tells you about the trust and the collaborative environment at Arsenal. Arteta did not stand up after winning the Premier League and take all the credit. He distributed it. He acknowledged the infrastructure. He acknowledged the ownership. And he acknowledged the sporting leadership. That is not just good public relations. That is a manager who understands that football clubs are built by many hands. On the journey itself, Arteta was equally reflective and powerful. His words acknowledged that in 3 previous occasions, Arsenal fell short at the very end. He described that as very painful. But then he said something significant. He said that pain is what drove all of them to find new ways to show what they are made of. And he finished by saying the manner in which they ultimately won makes it even better. That is the statement of a manager who has learned from failure, who has not been broken by it, who has used it as fuel. And looking at where Arsenal are right now, those words are not just inspirational, they are backed up by reality. On touching the Premier League trophy with everyone present, Arteta described the experience as different and magical. He said seeing the joy of the players, the supporters and the families all together brought something else entirely to the moment. He compared it to the night of the result itself and said the trophy ceremony was, in his own words, even better. Gabriel Martinelli's emotional tribute. One of the most moving reactions to Arsenal's Premier League title has come from Gabriel Martinelli. And what Martinelli said deserves to be heard and understood in full. He has been at Arsenal for 7 years. He arrived at this club before Mikel Arteta was even appointed as manager. 7 years. And in that time, he has watched Arsenal come close, fall short, be written off, be doubted, and then finally break through and win the title. He described winning the Premier League as something he has been dreaming of. He said it is a pleasure to play for Arsenal. And he ended by saying, winning this title means so much to me. As an analyst, you cannot look at that reaction and not be moved by it. But more importantly, from a football perspective, it tells you something about the bond between this squad and this club. Martinelli did not join Arsenal for money or glamour or trophies when he arrived. He joined, worked, grew and stayed. And now he is a Premier League champion. That kind of loyalty and commitment is part of what has made this Arsenal squad so cohesive and so difficult to break mentally throughout this season. Ian Wright on Arteta's legacy. Ian Wright is a legend of this club. And his words on Mikel Arteta this week carry significant weight in the context of Arsenal's history. Wright praised Arteta's impact in the strongest possible terms. Wright reflected on what Arsene Wenger sacrificed for Arsenal, specifically referencing how Wenger used his personal assurance to support the building of the Emirates Stadium. He acknowledged that Wenger did extraordinary things for this club, including consistently getting them into the Champions League. But then Wright said something powerful. He noted that Wenger never quite got Arsenal over the line in the Champions League. And Wright's conclusion was clear. If Arteta can win the Champions League, he supersedes everybody in Arsenal's managerial history. That is the magnitude of what is at stake on May 30th in Budapest. Wright also gave context to Arteta's achievement by reminding everyone that Arteta arrived as a number 2 with no management experience at all. He turned everything around. He brought in the right players, moved out the wrong ones, and built bridges with both the ownership and the supporters. Wright ended his assessment with the statement that Arteta will go down as the best if he completes this. Those are the words of a man who has lived and breathed Arsenal his whole life. And they tell you exactly what this Champions League final means for one man's legacy, the legacy of Mikel Arteta, the toughest Premier League in history. There is a wider context to Arsenal's title win that needs to be understood. This was not a comfortable league to win. Both Pep Guardiola and Liverpool manager Arne Slot publicly acknowledged that this was the toughest Premier League season they have experienced. And the evidence backs that up. West Ham United were relegated from the Premier League this season on 39 points. 39 points. In most seasons, that total would comfortably keep a club safe. The floor of the league is so high right now that even teams with nearly 40 points went down. And at the same time, 3 English clubs are in European Cup finals. That is an extraordinary statement of the Premier League's collective strength this season. So when you hear anyone trying to diminish what Arsenal have achieved, remember those facts. They won a league that Guardiola himself called the toughest he has experienced. They won it by 7 points. And they won it while simultaneously reaching the Champions League final. Wayne Rooney on Viktor Gyokeres. Wayne Rooney appeared on his BBC podcast and was asked to name his Premier League signing of the season following the conclusion of the 2025-26 campaign. And Rooney's answer was Viktor Gyokeres. Rooney was specific about why. He acknowledged that Granit Xhaka has been brilliant for Sunderland this season, but his view is that Gyokeres brought Arsenal something different, something that had been missing. He noted that Arsenal finished second in the Premier League 3 times before winning it. And in his assessment, Gyokeres was the decisive addition that changed the outcome. But Rooney went further than just praising one signing. He offered a broader tactical observation about what Arteta has done differently this season. He pointed out that everyone in football now wants to play the way Guardiola's Manchester City play. Arteta tried that approach for 3 years and did not win the league. So this season, Arteta changed the recruitment strategy. He moved Arsenal toward a bigger, more physical team. A team that does not concede goals. A team that scores from multiple positions across the pitch. And in Rooney's view, that shift is exactly why Arsenal are now Premier League champions. That is a sharp and accurate observation. Arteta adapted. He did not stubbornly stick to one idea because it looked beautiful. He asked what his team needed to win and he went and built it. Arteta's tribute to Guardiola. And on the subject of Pep Guardiola, Arteta himself had something remarkable to say. After winning the Premier League, Arteta publicly stated that he believed Manchester City were the best team in the history of this competition. He called Guardiola by far the best manager in the world. And he said that winning the title in those circumstances, under that kind of sustained pressure from that kind of opposition, made the achievement even more meaningful. There is real substance in those words. Arteta was not being diplomatic. He was being honest. He trained under Guardiola at Manchester City. He has studied his methods. He knows exactly what that opposition represents. And beating them to the title, not in a weak year, but in the toughest Premier League season in memory, is something Arteta is clearly proud of in the deepest sense. He also finished by saying he loved every minute of it. And that tells you something important about this man. He is not just a winner. He is someone who genuinely enjoys the competition, the pressure, and the challenge. That mentality filters down into his squad. Josh Kroenke and the summer ahead. Arsenal owner Josh Kroenke has already confirmed publicly that the club is planning summer reinforcements. His message was clear and unambiguous. The business never stops. He confirmed that discussions are already underway to improve the squad both on and off the pitch. And the structure leading that work is the hierarchy of Arteta and sporting director Andrea Berta. What this signals is important. Arsenal are not a club that will rest on what they have achieved. The ownership's message is that this is only the beginning. The goal is to defend the Premier League title next season. And potentially, depending on what happens in Budapest, to build a squad capable of competing in the Champions League again. The transfer stories we discussed earlier, Tonali, Lacroix and Alvarez, need to be understood in this context. These are not random rumours. They fit a clear pattern of the kind of players this club is targeting. A physical midfielder with quality in both boxes, a young, aggressive centre-back who fits Arteta's defensive system, and a striker of the highest level who can guarantee goals at the very top of European football. The groundwork is being laid right now. And if Arsenal lift the Champions League trophy on May 30th, the ambition and resources likely to follow will be substantial. The goal record and what it means. Now let me bring you to one of the most fascinating statistical stories surrounding Arsenal heading into the Budapest final. This season, Arsenal have scored 120 goals in all competitions. That number is remarkable on its own, but what makes it even more significant is what it represents in the context of this club's history. The highest goal tally Arsenal have achieved in a single season during this century was 121 goals. That came in the 2016 to 2017 season. Arsenal are currently 1 goal away from matching that record, and they are 2 goals away from breaking it outright. The opportunity to break that record is coming in the Champions League Final against PSG on the biggest stage in club football. If Arsenal produce the kind of attacking display that could deliver 2 goals against the reigning European champions, they will not just become champions of Europe for the first time in their history, they will also set a new 21st century scoring record for the club on the very same night. The significance of Arsenal's defensive record in this Champions League campaign also cannot be overstated. Setting aside the dead rubber result against Kairat Almaty, no team has managed to score 2 goals against Arsenal in the entire Champions League this season, not one. That means if Arsenal find the net twice in Budapest, they will back themselves completely to protect that lead. With William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes and David Raya defending that advantage, the evidence of this entire season suggests they are more than capable of holding firm. Gabriel mocks Haaland. And finally, let us end on a moment that tells you everything about the spirit and the fire within this Arsenal squad. Gabriel Magalhaes, Arsenal's Brazilian centre-back, took to social media following the Premier League trophy celebrations and posted pictures of himself with the trophy, with the song Good Feeling by Flo Rida playing underneath. Now, why does that matter? Because after Manchester City beat Arsenal 2-1 last month, Erling Haaland sang that same song directly to camera. It was widely interpreted as Haaland taunting Arsenal and rubbing in the defeat. And now Gabriel has responded. Not with words, not with aggression, but with the Premier League trophy in his hands and that exact same song playing. It is a small moment, but it says a great deal. These players have not forgotten the criticism, the defeats, or the moments when rivals celebrated at their expense. Bukayo Saka said publicly that the Arsenal players have not forgotten the abuse they received throughout the course of this season, and they are now getting their own back. The pair have had a combative relationship throughout this campaign. They clashed during the match at the Emirates at the start of the season and again in April at the Etihad. Gabriel came very close to serious retrospective punishment for one particular incident, but he came through it, and now he holds the Premier League trophy while Haaland does not. Gabriel gets the last laugh, for now, and he knows it. What happens next? So where does this all leave us? Let me give you the clear picture. Arsenal are Premier League champions. They fly to Budapest on Thursday. They face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League final on May 30th. PSG are dealing with 2 potentially significant injury doubts in Hakimi and Dembele. Arsenal's squad is focused, calm and structured in their preparation. The manager has spoken with clarity about the journey, the pain of falling short, and the drive that brought them to this moment. Off the pitch, the club is already planning for next summer. Sandro Tonali is a target at the talk stage. Jurrien Alvarez is a rumoured target with credible sources attached. And Alvarez Lacroix is being monitored by a manager who personally wants to sign him. None of these are confirmed. All of them are credible. Ian Wright believes that if Arteta wins the Champions League, he becomes the greatest manager in Arsenal's history. Wayne Rooney believes this Arsenal team fully deserves what they have achieved. And Arteta himself believes this is only the beginning. For Arsenal supporters right now, the feeling must be extraordinary. But the work is not done. Budapest awaits. History awaits. And this club, under Mikel Arteta, looks ready to go and take it. Stay with this channel for full coverage of the Champions League final build-up, the team news, the tactical breakdowns, and every piece of news coming out of the Arsenal camp between now and May 30th. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe now. This is Melissa, Arsenal analyst, and the story is far from over.